How's it going, everybody? This video is going to be showing you a budget JUND land destruction deck. This deck is going to cost around $55. The commander of choice here is Soul of Windgrace. Whenever this card enters the battlefield or attacks, we're going to put a land card from a graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under our control. This also can be from our opponent's graveyards. Quick overview of this deck is we want to attack people's mana bases and especially do that early in the game. We then want to fill our graveyard with lands so we can return them to the battlefield. We play a lot of cards that can do that. And we play creatures that synergize with the number of lands in our graveyards, so they're going to be able to grow in power and toughness. Unlike the red-green land destruction deck, adding black gives us access to a lot of great cards. Destructive Flow is an enchantment, and it's going to force each player at the beginning of their upkeep to then sacrifice a non-basic land. Desolation is another enchantment, where at the end of each turn, each player who tapped a land for mana during that turn then sacrifices the land. If we have impending disaster on the field during our upkeep, if there's 7 more lands in play, we can sacrifice this card and destroy all lands. Territorial Dispute is a little expensive on the curve, is 6 mana, however players can't play land cards at all. And at the beginning of our upkeep, we have to sacrifice this unless we sacrifice a land. With the synergy in the deck, that won't be a problem. These 3 creatures allow us to continually tap and destroy target lands. Detrivore is sweet because we can suspend it, and every time we remove a counter, we destroy a land. And it also grows in size with the amount of lands in our opponent's graveyards. If the Calamity deals 6 or more combat damage to an opponent, we get to destroy one of the lands they control. Fulminator Mage can be sacrificed to destroy target land. Stone Shaker Shaman, sweet because at the end of each player's turn, they sacrifice an untapped land. This is great against control decks and decks that want to play cards on other players' turns. Acidic Slime can destroy artifacts, lands, and enchantments. Centaur Vinecrasher grows in size with the amount of lands in our graveyard. We can also return it back to our hand. Countryside Crushers can allow us to continually mill the top of our deck, discarding our land cards to put into our graveyard and also grow that card in size. But also when a land card is put into the graveyard from anywhere, it's going to get an additional +1/+1 counter, so even when we destroy our opponent's cards. The last creature's power is going to be equal to the number of land cards in our graveyard, so we can grow. We can also mill the top card of our library with it, and we can also gain some life. Stone Rain, Rain of Tears, and Winter's Grasp are all similar, just destroy target land. These 3 cards also destroy a land, but also have a little bit of an additional benefit. These 3 cards make everybody sacrifice a land. Tectonic Break can be cast for a lot of mana to make everybody sack multiple lands. Smallpox is just an anarchy card because it makes people discard, sacrifice creature, and sacrifice a land, and they lose a life. Super fun. Decimate can pretty much kill anything. Acid Moss destroys a target land, then you get to put a forest into the battlefield. And Boom Bust can be cast to destroy all lands. Unearth can hit almost every creature in our deck, so we can return to the battlefield and get more benefits. Same thing with Eternal Witness, but it goes back to the hand. Goblin Dark Dweller is going to allow us to get a creature on the battlefield. It can copy an instant or sorcery card from our graveyard with a mana value 3 or less, which is a lot of our land destruction cards. Gloomstalker is going to allow us to get cards from our graveyard to our battlefield. Whenever Titania enters the battlefield, we get to put a land from our graveyard to the battlefield. And whenever a land we control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, we're going to create a 5/3 elemental token. These 3 cards are going to allow us to play lands from our graveyard. Later in the game, when we have a bunch of lands we destroyed in our graveyard, and our graveyard is quite large because we continually milled, we should have a lot of lands, and if we cast Splendid Reclamation, we're going to be able to get all those lands back to the battlefield, which is insane. You can use Beast Within to target any permanent, but you can also go for a land and they create a 3/3 token. Wrecking Ball also destroys creatures and lands, and then Casualties of War pretty much hits anything. Putrefy, Reclamation Sage, and Croson Grip is going to allow us to deal with artifacts or enchantments. Terminate and Doomblade are there just to get rid of some problematic creatures. Both Faithless Looting and Grizzly Savage are going to allow us to get some extra card draw while also filling our graveyard. Diabolic Tutor is going to allow us to search for any card in our deck. Read the Bones is going to help us find the cards that we need. And Rivadeer's Charm is quite versatile. We can make our opponent sacrifice a creature, we can get rid of their graveyard, and we can also get some draw. Next up are some ramp cards. These are pretty generic. Dark Ritual, Rampant Growth, and Cultivate are sorceries that can allow us to ramp as well. Whenever land is put into the graveyard from play, Dingus Eggs allow us to deal 2 damage to that land's controller. And both Command Sphere and Arcane Signet are going to allow us to filter our mana. We are running the 3 Talisman because we do need to make sure our mana is filtered so we can cast our spells. Both Darksteel Ingot and Obelisk of JUND are there for extra mana. You cannot skip out on these artifacts because, again, we are destroying everyone's lands, including ours. If somehow we don't have access to our graveyard, we want to make sure that we're still able to cast our spells, and having these artifacts on the battlefield will at least help us with that. For the lands, we're running all the temples so we can scry, and they're super cheap. We're running the 3 bridges because they are indestructible, so they cannot be destroyed. You definitely need these for your deck. Command Tower, Evolving Wilds, and Terramorphic Expanse you kind of just need in any commander deck, especially a budget one. Bojuka Bog is important because we don't want to have our opponent getting access to their graveyard because we are going to be filling it up with their lands. Savage Lands gives us access to all 3 colors, and Cinderglade just because it's super cheap. Then we're running 7 mountains, 7 swamps, and 10 forests. We definitely want more access to green because we can use it to ramp. With land destruction decks, one of the most critical things is hitting the mana base early. If for some reason you think this deck is not performing as expected, it's probably better to cut the higher mana value cards for cheaper removal spells or cheap converted mana cost cards that target lands. If you are interested in this deck, definitely see what other people have to say below. Thanks for watching, stay tuned for some more, and I'll see you later.